In an age of empires, when the world was a chessboard for kings and conquerors, one name echoed from the heart of Istanbul to the gates of Vienna. A name that would be etched in history not just with the sword, but with the ink of law and the chisel of the artist. This is the story of a man whose destiny was to forge an empire, a leader whose ambition was matched only by his wisdom. This is the story of Suleiman the Magnificent. Born in the shadow of giants, the young Suleiman spent his formative years in Manisa. Far from the gilded cage of the capital, he was groomed for greatness. He learned the arts of war, the subtleties of governance, and the depth of poetry. His companion was the brilliant Pargala Ibrahim, a friend who would later become his Grand Vizier. Together, they dreamed of a future defined by glory and justice. When his father, Selim the Grim, passed away in 1520, the throne was his. At just 26 years old, Suleiman inherited not just a crown, but the immense responsibility of an empire stretching across 3 continents. The world watched, wondering if this young ruler could carry such a heavy mantle. Suleiman was ready. He didn't just intend to rule, he intended to redefine what it meant to be a sultan. His journey, from a prince in a provincial palace to the master of a global empire, was about to begin. The era of Suleiman had dawned. Suleiman's reign began not with a conquest, but with a promise of justice. His first act was to free hundreds of captives, unjustly imprisoned by his father, a clear signal of a new era of leadership. But make no mistake, his ambition burned brightly. He knew that to expand his empire, he needed an army that was not just powerful, but fiercely loyal. He turned his attention to the Janissaries, the elite infantry of the Ottoman army. He showered them with promotions, increased their pay, and personally led them in their training. He forged them into an unbreakable spearhead, a force whose courage would become legendary. Beyond the military, Suleiman understood that a great empire is built on a foundation of order and efficiency. He initiated sweeping administrative reforms, rooting out corruption and ensuring that his vast realm was governed not by whim, but by law. His vision was clear: to create a state that was as just as it was powerful, as organized as it was vast. With his house in order and his armies prepared, Suleiman the Magnificent was ready to turn his gaze outward. The world would soon feel the full force of his ambition. The drums of war began to beat. Suleiman's first major target was the island of Rhodes, a fortress of the Knights of St. John that had defied Ottoman power for generations. The siege was brutal, a grueling 6-month struggle of courage and attrition. Finally, in 1522, the fortress fell. Suleiman, in a display of magnanimity, allowed the knights to leave with their lives and honor intact. His message was clear. Resistance was futile, but surrender would be met with mercy. 4 years later, his ambition led him to the heart of Europe. On the plains of Mohács in Hungary, Suleiman's reformed army faced the might of the Hungarian kingdom. The battle was a tactical masterpiece. In less than 2 hours, the Hungarian army was annihilated, and their king lay dead. The victory was swift, total, and terrifying. It sent a shockwave across Christendom and opened the door to Central Europe. The climax of his military ambition came in 1529, at the very gates of Vienna. The city stood as the last major bastion against Ottoman expansion. A massive Ottoman army laid siege, their cannons pounding the city walls. The defenders fought with desperate courage, and as an early, brutal winter set in, Suleiman was forced to make a difficult decision. He withdrew. While Vienna was not conquered, the siege itself was a symbol of his incredible reach. He had brought his empire to the doorstep of his greatest rival, demonstrating a power that Europe could no longer ignore. But Suleiman's legacy was not forged in battle alone. He was known to his own people as Kanuni, the Lawgiver. Recognizing that a lasting empire needed more than just military might, he undertook a monumental task: the complete overhaul of the Ottoman legal system. For centuries, his code of laws would form the bedrock of the empire's administration, balancing religious scripture with practical statecraft. This was his testament to justice and order, an achievement that arguably outshone his military victories. His reign also ushered in a golden age of Ottoman culture. Under his patronage, the arts flourished. He commissioned the brilliant architect Mimar Sinan to transform the skyline of Istanbul and beyond. Masterpieces like the Süleymaniye Mosque rose to the heavens, breathtaking monuments of faith, power, and architectural genius. They were more than just buildings. They were symbols of an empire at its zenith. From intricate calligraphy and vibrant ceramics to lyrical poetry, the court of Suleiman became a dazzling center of creativity. His leadership nurtured not just warriors, but poets, artists, and scholars. This cultural blossoming was the soul of his empire. A vibrant legacy of beauty and intellect that would endure long after the echoes of battle had faded. As the sun began to set on his long and glorious reign, Suleiman, the warrior, the lawgiver, the patron of the arts, found himself in his final campaign. Even in old age, his ambition drove him forward. He died in his tent during the siege of Shigatvar, his spirit unyielding to the very end. He had ruled for 46 years, longer than any other sultan. He had expanded his empire to its greatest extent, commanded immense power, and presided over a cultural renaissance. Yet in the end, what is the true measure of a leader? Is it the lands they conquer, or the laws they create? Is it the monuments they build, or the ideas they inspire? Suleiman's story is a profound reflection on the nature of power. It reminds us that true legacy is not just about strength, but about wisdom. It's about the courage to lead and the humility to serve. The empire he built has long since vanished, but the lessons of his life, of ambition, justice, and the enduring quest for a meaningful legacy, continue to resonate through the ages. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more.